Stop before you spend these 3 US coins. Check them one more time. A 1974 Washington quarter with no mint mark, a 1997 D. Kennedy half-dollar, and a 2000 P. Kennedy half-dollar may look completely ordinary, but condition, mint marks, and rare mint-made errors can make a huge difference to collectors. And one of these Kennedy halves has reached hundreds of dollars in an exceptional grade. So grab your coins, look closely, and stay until the end, because you may be overlooking a detail that most people never notice. The coin number 1. Before you spend that 1974 Washington quarter, look at it one more time. If your quarter has no mint mark, you might be wondering why it looks different from quarters with a D or P. The truth is, most 1974 no mint mark quarters are common, but some exceptionally preserved examples can be worth far more than 25 cents. So before you put this quarter back into circulation, check the date, the condition, the surfaces, and those tiny details collectors look for. Stay with me, because by the end, you'll know exactly what makes a 1974 quarter interesting. Take your coin and look at the front. You should see the familiar portrait of George Washington facing left. Above him is Liberty, while In God We Trust appears beside his portrait. At the bottom, you'll see the date 1974. Now look to the right of Washington's neck. Do you see a D? Do you see an S? Or is there nothing there at all? If there is no mint mark, you're looking at the Philadelphia version. And here's something many people don't realize. Philadelphia quarters from this period did not carry a P mint mark. PCGS notes that Philadelphia struck Washington quarters without a mint mark through 1979, with the P mint mark beginning in 1980. So don't assume that no mint mark automatically means something is missing or wrong. It is completely normal for a 1974 Philadelphia quarter. In fact, Philadelphia produced 801,456,000 of them. That is a huge number. So if you're holding an ordinary, circulated 1974 quarter, don't expect it to automatically be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. But here's where the story becomes interesting. Condition. That's the first thing you should examine. Imagine you have 2 1974 quarters. The first has been circulating for decades. Washington's hair is worn. The fields are covered with small contact marks. The rims have some damage. The coin looks dull and heavily handled. Now look at another 1974 quarter. The details are sharp. The surfaces are unusually clean. There is very little visible wear. The original mint luster is still present. Suddenly, you're looking at a completely different type of collectible. The date is identical. The mint is identical. But the condition can make a huge difference. And that's why you should never judge an old quarter simply by its age. Now turn the coin over. This is where you'll see the famous American eagle reverse. The eagle spreads its wings beneath the inscription United States of America. You'll also see quarter dollar and EPLURBUS UNUM. This design is instantly recognizable to anyone who has handled American quarters. And there's another important detail about the 1974 quarter. It is not a 90% silver circulating quarter. Beginning in 1965, regular Washington quarters were made with a copper-nickel clad composition rather than the earlier 90% silver composition. So don't let someone tell you that every old 1974 quarter is a silver quarter. It isn't. The standard 1974 circulating quarter is a clad coin. But that doesn't make it uninteresting. Because collectors don't only search for silver. They search for condition, varieties, and errors. Now let's talk about value. A normal circulated 1974 no mint mark Washington quarter is generally worth around its face value. That may sound disappointing. But don't stop there, because high-grade examples can be a completely different story. Current price guides show substantially higher values for uncirculated examples, while PCGS's price guide also shows a much wider range as the grade climbs. And here's the number that might surprise you. A 1974 Philadelphia Washington quarter, graded MS 67+, reportedly sold for $2,115 in 2020. Now don't make the mistake of hearing $2,115 and thinking your pocket change 1974 quarter is automatically worth $2,115. That's not how coin values work. That was an exceptional high-grade coin. Most 1974 quarters never come close to that level. The lesson is much more interesting. The date alone doesn't create the value. The individual coin does. So let's imagine you find one. You pull a 1974 quarter from an old collection. At first, it looks ordinary. Then you move it under the light. The surfaces look surprisingly clean. You look at Washington's hair. The details are sharp. You look at the fields. There aren't many obvious contact marks. You turn it over. The eagle's details are strong. Now you have a reason to slow down. Don't spend it. Don't clean it. Don't polish it. Protect it. Because cleaning an old coin can permanently damage its original surface and reduce its collector appeal. Never use toothpaste. Never scrub it with a rough cloth. Never use metal polish. Never try to make it shine. A coin's original surface is much more important than making it look shiny. Now let's talk about another thing that can make a 1974 quarter interesting. Mint errors. This is where you need to pay very close attention. A strange-looking mark doesn't automatically mean you've discovered a rare error. A scratch is not automatically an error. A dent is not automatically an error. A damaged edge isn't automatically an error. A genuine mint error happens during the manufacturing process. That's why you should carefully distinguish between mint-made characteristics and damage that happened after the coin entered circulation. If your 1974 quarter has something unusual, take clear pictures and examine it carefully. Look at the date. Look at the lettering. Look at Washington's portrait. Look around the rim. Look at the reverse. Look for unusual doubling, off-center striking, wrong planchet characteristics, or other documented mint errors. But don't make a value claim just because something looks strange. That's one of the biggest mistakes new collectors make. Now imagine finding a truly unusual 1974 quarter. You notice that something doesn't look right. You compare it with another normal 1974 quarter. The difference is obvious. That's when the coin becomes interesting. And if the characteristic appears to be genuinely mint-made, professional authentication may be worth considering. Because an authenticated coin is much easier to evaluate than an unverified internet claim. Now let's go back to the history. The Washington quarter had already been circulating for decades by 1974. Millions of Americans used these coins every day. They went through supermarkets, gas stations, restaurants, vending machines, and cash registers. Some were carried in pockets for years. Some disappeared into sofa cushions. Some were thrown into jars. And some were carefully saved. Think about the journey of a 1974 quarter. Someone could have received it almost 50 years ago. Maybe it bought something small. Maybe it was carried around in someone's pocket. Maybe it was placed into a collection and forgotten. And now, decades later, it could be sitting in your hand. That's what makes old coins fascinating. You're not simply holding 25 cents. You're holding a small piece of American, everyday history. But now let's return to the most important question. What should you actually look for? Start with the date. Make sure it really says 1974. Then check the mint mark area. If there is no mint mark, that points to Philadelphia for this issue. Next, examine the condition. Does the coin show heavy circulation? Or does it still look almost untouched? Look closely at Washington's cheek and hair. Then inspect the open fields. These areas can reveal contact marks and scratches. Now look at the reverse. Study the eagle. Look at the lettering. Check the rim. And then examine the entire coin under good lighting. The goal isn't to find something suspicious. The goal is to find something genuinely unusual. And remember the biggest lesson from the 1974 quarter. Common does not always mean worthless. A coin can have a very large mintage and still have exceptional examples that collectors want. That's exactly what the 1974 Philadelphia quarter demonstrates. More than 800 million were produced, yet top-condition examples can command much more than face value. So if you have one in ordinary condition, don't expect a fortune. But if you have one that is unusually well preserved, has beautiful surfaces, strong detail, or a genuine mint error, then it's worth taking a much closer look. And this is why you should never judge a coin only by what it says on its face. The number 25 cents tells you the denomination. The date 1974 tells you when it was made. The absence of a mint mark tells you it came from Philadelphia. But the condition and characteristics tell you whether collectors may find it especially interesting. So before you spend your 1974 Washington quarter, stop for a moment. Look at Washington. Look at the date. Check the mint mark area. Study the surfaces. Check the color and luster. Turn it over. Inspect the eagle. Look for unusual characteristics. And most importantly, don't clean it, because you might have nothing more than a normal quarter. And that's perfectly fine. But you might also have an unusually well-preserved example or a genuine mint-made error that deserves professional attention. The real excitement isn't believing that every 1974 quarter is worth thousands. The real excitement is learning how to recognize the exceptional one. So the next time you see 1974 on a Washington quarter with no mint mark, don't automatically throw it back into your pocket. Take another look. Because sometimes the difference between an ordinary quarter and a collectible quarter is hidden in details that most people never notice. 25 cents is the face value. But the right condition can tell a very different story. The coin number 2. Stop before you spend a 1997 D. Kennedy $50. Look at that tiny D mint mark one more time. At first glance, this may look like just another 50-cent coin, but there is a reason collectors pay close attention to the condition of certain 1997 D. Kennedy halves. Most examples are not worth a fortune, but an exceptionally preserved coin can be a completely different story. And one certified 1997 D example reached $1,410 at auction. So what makes that coin different from an ordinary $50? Stay with me, because we're going to examine exactly what collectors look for. Take your coin and turn it to the front. You should see the portrait of President John F. Kennedy facing left. Above his portrait is Liberty, while In God We Trust appears on both sides of the lower portrait area. At the bottom is the date 1997. Now look carefully around Kennedy's neck area. There is a tiny letter D. That little D is important because it tells us the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. And here's something fascinating. The 1997 D. Kennedy half dollar had a mintage of 19,876,000 pieces. That's a substantial number, so the date itself doesn't make every 1997 D half dollar rare. But coin collecting isn't always about how many were made. Sometimes it's about how many survived in exceptional condition. Imagine two 1997 D. Kennedy half dollars sitting side by side. The first coin has been handled and circulated. Kennedy's cheek has contact marks. The fields contain scratches and small hits. The rims may show signs of wear. It looks exactly like a coin that has spent years being moved around. Now look at the second coin. The surfaces are bright. The details are sharp. Kennedy's hair and facial features are well preserved. The fields have very few distracting marks. The original mint luster is still strong. Both coins say 1997 D. But to a collector, they can be two very different coins. And that's where the real mystery begins. The 1997 D. Kennedy half dollar was made from a copper-nickel clad composition, not the 90% silver composition used on Kennedy halves from 1964. PCGS lists the regular 1997 D issue as 75% copper and 25% nickel over a pure copper center. So if somebody tells you that every 1997 D. Kennedy half dollar contains valuable silver, don't believe it. The standard 1997 D circulation coin is clad. But that doesn't mean it has no collector value. Far from it. The biggest factor you should examine is grade. A normal circulated coin may be worth around its face value. But as the condition gets better, the potential collector premium can increase. One current value guide lists the 1997 D at about $3.62 or more in uncirculated condition, while other market guides show substantially higher values for very high grades. And this is where things get interesting. PCGS records an auction result of $1,410 for a 1997 D. Kennedy half dollar graded MS-68, sold by Heritage Auctions in 2012. Think about that for a second. The face value is only 50 cents. Yet an exceptionally high-grade example brought $1,410 at auction. But don't make the mistake of thinking your ordinary 1997 D half dollar is automatically worth $1,410. It isn't. That price belongs to an exceptional certified example. PCGS specifically notes that MS-66 and lower examples are common and affordable, while MS-67 examples become much harder to find and MS-68 examples are rare. So the real question isn't simply, do I have a 1997 D? The better question is, how good is my 1997 D? That's the question that can change everything. Now take a close look at Kennedy's face. Start with the cheek. Do you see lots of tiny contact marks? Look at the jaw. Look at the hair. Look at the open areas around the portrait. These are the places where small marks can become important when a coin is being evaluated at high grades. A coin can look beautiful to the naked eye, but still have enough tiny marks under magnification to prevent it from receiving an extremely high grade. That's why serious collectors use magnification and professional grading. Now turn the coin over. You'll see the famous presidential seal with the eagle surrounded by stars. The reverse includes United States of America, half dollar, and EPLURBUS UNUM. Look carefully at the eagle. Check the feathers. Look at the lettering. Examine the fields. Then inspect the rim. You're not simply looking for an old-looking coin. You're looking for a well-preserved coin. And there's another Exciting possibility. Errors. If your 1997 D. Kennedy half-dollar has something that looks unusual, don't immediately assume you've found a valuable error. A scratch can happen after the coin leaves the mint. A dent can happen in circulation. A damaged rim can happen years after production. A genuine mint error is different because it originates during the manufacturing process. So if you notice something unusual, compare it carefully with a normal 1997 D example. Look at the date. Look at the mint mark. Look at the lettering. Look at the rim. Look at the strike. Look at the entire coin. If the unusual feature appears to be genuinely mint-made, professional authentication can be worthwhile. This is especially important because the internet is full of people calling ordinary damage a rare error. Don't make that mistake. Now let's go back to the history of this coin. The Kennedy half-dollar was introduced in 1964, following the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in November 1963. The coin quickly became one of the most recognizable American denominations. By 1997, the design had already been part of American coinage for more than 3 decades. The portrait on the front was created by Gilroy Roberts, while the reverse design was created by Frank Gasparo. So when you hold a 1997 D. Kennedy half-dollar, you're holding a coin connected to one of the most recognizable presidential designs in American numismatic history. And here's another interesting part. Kennedy half-dollars aren't commonly seen in everyday transactions compared with quarters, dimes, and pennies. That means many examples were saved by collectors rather than heavily circulated. PCGS notes that the 1997 D came in very nice quality and that many uncirculated examples were saved. So finding an uncirculated example isn't impossible. But finding one in exceptionally high grade is much harder. That's the difference you need to understand. Now imagine opening an old coin collection. You find several Kennedy half-dollars. Most are worn. Then you see one dated 1997. You turn it over. You see the D. At first, nothing seems special. But then you notice the surfaces. They're unusually clean. You move the coin under the light. The luster flashes across the fields. Kennedy's portrait looks incredibly sharp. There are very few marks. You turn it over again. The eagle is beautifully detailed. Now you have a reason to stop. Don't spend it. Don't clean it. Don't polish it. Don't rub it with a cloth. Simply protect it. Because cleaning a collectible coin can damage the original surface and potentially reduce its desirability. If you genuinely believe you've found an exceptional coin, professional grading is a much better approach than trying to polish it or make it look newer. And remember the most important lesson. A coin doesn't have to be old to become collectible. The 1997 D is a perfect example. It's much newer than many famous American coins, but exceptionally high-grade examples can still attract serious collector interest. PCGS's auction record proves that the right combination of date, mint mark, and exceptional grade can produce a result dramatically above face value. So if you have a 1997 D. Kennedy half-dollar, don't automatically think you've discovered a fortune. Instead, become a detective. Check the date. Check the D mint mark. Check Kennedy's portrait. Look for contact marks. Study the luster. Examine the reverse. Check the rim. Look for genuine, mint-made abnormalities. And never clean the coin. A normal circulated 1997 D may be worth little more than its face value. A nice uncirculated example can be worth more. A very high-grade certified example can command a substantial premium. And an unusual authenticated mint error could create an entirely different collecting story. That's what makes coin hunting so exciting. You don't know what you're holding until you actually look. So the next time a 1997 D. Kennedy half-dollar lands in your hands, don't immediately put it away. Turn it over. Look at Kennedy. Find that tiny D. Study the surfaces. Look for the details most people ignore. Because the real treasure isn't always written in giant letters on the coin. Sometimes it's hidden in the condition, strike, surfaces, and tiny details. And that is exactly why this little 50-cent piece deserves a second look. It may be an ordinary half-dollar. It may be a nice collectible. Or, if you happen to find an exceptionally preserved example, it could be something much more interesting. So before you spend your 1997 D. Kennedy half-dollar, look again, the coin number 3. Stop before you spend that 2000 Kennedy half-dollar. Take a close look at the tiny letter P. Most people would see a 50-cent coin and move on, but collectors know that the date, mint mark, condition, and tiny details can tell a completely different story. The 2000 P. Kennedy half-dollar isn't automatically a fortune, but an exceptionally preserved example can be worth dramatically more than face value. One high-grade example has even reached more than $760 at auction. So what makes that coin different? Stay with me, because we're going to check the details that could make your 2000 P. Kennedy half-dollar worth a second look. Now take your coin and look at the front. You should immediately recognize the portrait of President John F. Kennedy facing left. Above his portrait is Liberty, while In God We Trust appears on both sides of the lower portrait. At the bottom, you'll see the date 2000. Now look carefully around Kennedy's neck. There is a tiny P. That P tells us this Kennedy half-dollar was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. And here's something important. The 2000 P issue had a mintage of approximately 22.6 million coins. That means the date and mint mark alone don't make every example rare. PCGS describes the 2000 P as one of the more common issues in the series, with many examples still available. But this is where coin hunting becomes interesting. Because mintage isn't the whole story. Condition matters. Imagine putting two 2000 P. Kennedy half-dollars side by side. The first one has spent years in circulation. It has scratches across the fields. Kennedy's cheek has contact marks. The hair isn't as sharp. The rims have been touched and bumped. Now look at another 2000 P. The surface is bright and clean. Kennedy's portrait is sharply defined. The fields have very few marks. The original mint luster is still visible. Both coins are dated 2000 P. But a serious collector may see two completely different coins. That's because high-grade collecting is all about preservation. Now turn your coin over. You'll see the famous Kennedy half-dollar reverse featuring the presidential seal. The eagle is surrounded by stars, while the inscriptions United States of America, half-dollar, and EPLURBUSUNUM complete the design. Take a close look at the eagle. Study the feathers. Look at the lettering. Examine the open fields. Then check the rim. You're looking for sharp details and clean surfaces. And remember something very important about the 2000 P. This is not a regular 90% silver Kennedy half-dollar. The standard 2000 P business strike is a copper-nickel-clad coin with a copper center. PCGS lists its composition as 75% copper and 25% nickel over a pure copper center. So if someone tells you that every 2000 P Kennedy half-dollar is valuable because it contains silver, that's incorrect. But don't put the coin away yet. The real story is condition. A current value guide lists an uncirculated 2000p at about $3.62 or more, while the highest grade certified examples can command much more. And now comes the number that makes this coin especially interesting. PCGS records an auction result of $763.75 for a 2000p Kennedy half-dollar graded MS-68, sold by Heritage Auctions in August 2014. Think about that. The coin's face value is only 50 cents. But an exceptionally high-grade certified example brought nearly $764. That doesn't mean your 2000p is worth $764. Most definitely aren't. The important lesson is that grade can create an enormous difference in value. PCGS's population information shows why. The 2000p is common in lower uncirculated grades, while MS-67 becomes considerably scarcer, and MS-68 represents a much smaller group of exceptional coins. So don't just ask, "Do I have a 2000p?" Ask, "How well preserved is my 2000p?" That's a much better question. Now bring the coin under a bright light. Start with Kennedy's cheek. Do you see lots of tiny marks? Look at the jaw. Look at the hair. Look around the portrait. Now inspect the large open fields. These areas are extremely important when you're trying to determine whether a coin might have unusually high-grade potential. A coin can look perfect from a normal viewing distance and still have numerous tiny marks visible under magnification. That's why serious collectors examine coins carefully. Now check the luster. Does the coin have a natural mint-made shine? Or does it look dull and heavily handled? If the surfaces are bright and the coin appears virtually untouched, that's when you should slow down. But there's one thing you should never do. Don't clean it. Don't polish it. Don't use toothpaste. Don't use metal cleaner. Don't scrub the surface. And don't try to make it shine. A coin's original surface is extremely important to collectors, and improper cleaning can permanently damage it. If you think you've found an exceptional example, protect it instead. Now let's talk about errors. This is another reason coin hunters examine ordinary-looking coins carefully. A 2000p Kennedy half-dollar with a genuine mint error can be much more interesting than a normal example. But there's a major warning here. Not every strange-looking mark is a mint error. A scratch isn't automatically an error. A dent isn't automatically an error. A damaged edge isn't automatically an error. A coin can be damaged after leaving the mint. A genuine mint error is created during the manufacturing process. So if you see something unusual, compare it carefully with a normal 2000p Kennedy half-dollar. Look at the date. Look at the P mint mark. Study the lettering. Check the rim. Examine the strike. Look at both sides. If the feature appears genuinely mint-made, professional authentication can help determine what you're actually looking at. This is important because many online coin claims confuse ordinary damage with valuable errors. Now let's step back and look at the history. The Kennedy half-dollar was introduced in 1964, shortly after President John F. Kennedy's assassination. The design quickly became one of the most recognizable American coin designs. The obverse portrait was designed by Gilroy Roberts, while the reverse was designed by Frank Gasparo. PCGS identifies both designers for the 2000p issue. By the year 2000, Americans had already been using the Kennedy half-dollar design for more than 3 decades. And although half-dollars weren't used as frequently in everyday transactions as quarters and dimes, millions were still produced and collected. That means a 2000p Kennedy half-dollar can represent a small piece of modern American coin history. Now imagine finding one today. Maybe it's sitting inside an old coin jar. Maybe someone inherited it from a family collection. Maybe you find it while searching through old half-dollars. At first, it looks completely ordinary. Then you notice the date. 2000. You look beside Kennedy's neck. P. Then you turn the coin under the light. The surface looks remarkably clean. Kennedy's cheek has very few marks. The hair details are strong. The fields are bright. You turn it over. The eagle is sharply defined. Now you have a reason to stop. Don't spend it. Don't clean it. Don't throw it back into the pile. Protect it and examine it carefully. Because the exciting part of coin collecting isn't simply finding an old coin. It's finding a coin that has survived exceptionally well. And the 2000p is a great example of that idea. More than 22 million were produced, so the normal coin isn't rare. But the very best examples are a different story. That's why the PCGS auction record of $763.75 is so interesting. It demonstrates how far a high-grade example can separate itself from ordinary pieces. So if your 2000p is circulated, don't be disappointed. It's still an interesting Kennedy half-dollar. If it's uncirculated and attractive, take a closer look. If it's exceptionally clean with strong luster and minimal marks, pay even more attention. And if you find something that appears to be a genuine mint error, that's when professional evaluation may become worthwhile. But remember, don't chase an imaginary million-dollar price. Chase the characteristics that collectors actually care about. Condition, strike, surface quality, luster, mint errors, and authentication. That's the real treasure hunt. So before you spend your 2000p Kennedy half-dollar, give it one final inspection. Check the date. Check that tiny P. Look closely at Kennedy's cheek. Study the hair. Inspect the fields. Turn it over. Examine the eagle. Check the lettering. Look around the rim. And never clean the coin. Because you may simply have a normal 50-cent piece. You may have a nice, uncirculated collectible. Or you may have an unusually preserved example that deserves much closer attention. The number 50 cents tells you the face value. The 2000 tells you the year. The P tells you Philadelphia. But the condition and tiny details are what can make the coin interesting to collectors. So the next time a 2000p Kennedy half-dollar appears in your hands, don't immediately put it back into circulation. Stop. Look again. Because sometimes the most interesting part of a coin isn't what you can see from across the room. It's the tiny detail you only notice when you take a closer look.